Hello, Golnar, and welcome to Creative or Dead.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for
So,
joining us.
yeah. And you're in Sydney, but you're actually based in Amsterdam. And I guess, could you just introduce yourself and a bit of maybe why you're in Australia at the moment?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm here for the Melbourne Art Fair. We have a solo exhibition with Gallery Sally Dan Cuthbert. So, actually, yeah, I'm from Sydney. I left to Amsterdam around, I don't know, in 2011. So, I haven't moved back yet. But my partner and I have a studio together. So it's an artistic practice between art and design called Rive Roshan. And we've been working with Sally for the last, I don't know, since she started. I think she began in 2019. So we started with her from the beginning. And it's been great to have that connection with Australia as well, because we've been exhibiting a lot in Europe. Our studio is really based in Amsterdam, but it's so nice to have this connection to, yeah, to Australia as well. And it's really exciting to be part of the fair.
Yeah. And so I guess somewhere where we usually start with guests is the kind of your career trajectory and your creative journey. I mean, often they're intertwined. And so yeah, what did you study? And then yeah, talk us through how you've kind of developed your art slash design practice because it is this kind of fusion
Mm.
of art and design.
Yeah, definitely. Just thinking how far back to go. So
You can
yeah,
go all
maybe
the
I'll
way if you want.
maybe I'll give you a little bit of insight into also how I ended up here in the first place. So I'm Australian, but my family migrated from Iran to Australia after the revolution in 1979. So I've always had a lot of exposure to art and poetry because like culturally it's really rooted in our heritage. It's something that, yeah, we just grow up with, exquisite food, but also music. Like my father is really into folkloric music. So I was always exposed to that. And a lot of my relatives were musicians, designers, artists, but also you also have the lawyers and the other side of the family as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually I was always exposed to art and creativity just as a child. I
Mhm.
started becoming very aware of my surroundings, beauty. Beauty has always been something I've been very focused on and tried to capture, whether it was through drawing, but I also just remember, in the suburbs of Sydney, growing up, you're having a huge backyard and then in the afternoons laying down in the grass, looking at the sky and thinking, I need to capture this with my disposable camera. So it's always like, if I think about it, it's very deeply rooted going down this path. Yeah, in a way, it's sort of conventional in the sense that my dad, he's a designer. He actually studied in art college in the UK before everything
Wow.
went badly in Iran. So then,
Mm.
so I was always, I also looked up to him and the life that he had. He would tell me about living in northern England, and then he would like paint on the walls with his student friends, and I always thought, oh, I want to live that life as well. I want to paint, I want a creative space. So I went on to study visual communications and international studies at UTS in Sydney, and yeah, and I think I did the international studies because although I really love the creative side, the communication side, for me, like that's really always been really important as well. Like the why, why am I creating this? And I think I really learned that, to be critical, to create, mindful and create meaning. I learned that really in university. And then with international studies, I had the opportunity to live in Barcelona for a year.
Mm.
And, part of that was learning Spanish. I didn't
Oh,
really
wow.
learn enough Spanish, but I think that gave me, as someone whose roots sort of were from another part of the world and grew up in a country which is so multicultural, but then, it's still, you still feel connected to somewhere else as well, even whether you've been there, even if you haven't been there or not. I think living in Barcelona that year sort of gave me the opportunity to be a bit more philosophical about my life and find myself. I think it's always good to have some time away from your normal life and your normal
Mm.
surroundings. It makes you more reflective. I really got
Mm.
into, I just exposed myself to also the Spanish art forms, flamenco, and I went on my own journey. I kind of created this journey for myself. Came back to Sydney, finished my studies, and then just before I had my graduation ceremony, well, actually, like just after finishing my exams and thesis and everything, was working with a friend of ours who's a photographer. She's a really great photographer in Sydney. She was doing some public art projects, and that really gave me exposure to, she was like, oh, maybe you can help me. So that gave me exposure to like real life working on art projects in Sydney, like community-based projects. Also, my aunt, she was managing some public artworks in Blacktown. So she also got me sort of facilitating some community projects as well. But then, funnily enough, my friend, so the lady I was working with, her name's Joanne, she said, oh, there's this job in Amsterdam. You need to apply for it. It's your job. You have to go for it. So it happened to be like a junior designer role at Marcel Wanders' studio. So I spent, I think I spent like, I don't know, 3 full days just working on my portfolio. I was like, okay, this is my job. Submitted it, and then I got an email like, oh, can you do an interview? Did the interview with the HR team, and then 2 weeks later I had to be there, so I missed my graduation ceremony so that I could do.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
mean, to get a job at Marcel Wanders straight out
yeah.
of uni is like, you don't need, like, that's the dream.
I think I had some sort of like, I don't know, my great grandmother was looking over me. She was making
It's
things
fated.
happen. I really have this, this sort of fate feeling. And that's actually, so I landed in Amsterdam. Then I went on like the first day, rang the bell, took the lift upstairs. I mean, you arrived, especially back then, you arrived in this space and there was all these amazing like mosaic tiles, this giant, like it was very Marcel Wanders.
Mm.
Then went up the lift and the elevator doors open and there was Ruben who was like standing there. I was like, oh, hello. Like, I hadn't met him before, but I was like, oh, you look cool. And then we had a really like, we immediately had this very personal click, like it just felt very natural. I felt like I knew him, and also a creative click. So there was something there as well straight away. So he was my direct, I was working with Ruben at the time, and
Mm.
he took me under his wing and showed me around the studio. And together we built a team there. He left to London a few months, like maybe 6 months in. And then, a year after I went to London as well. So, and then I think I don't know how much further you'd like.
Well, I
Really
guess for
good.
context, Ruben is the other half of Rive Roshan.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
you guys are
exactly.
partners as well?
Yeah. So we
Yes.
we
It was
have
hard to
a.
find that confirmed online. I read a lot of
Oh,
interviews and I was like, I'm pretty sure, but you know.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, it's yeah, we're very open about it, but
Mm.
yeah, maybe we don't talk about it all the time. But
Yeah.
yeah, we definitely are a couple. We have a family together. We deal with the grind, the normal daily grind of family life, but also the business side and also the artistic side. So we're really 24 hours a day together. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what a meet cute. The doors open and there is this person who becomes such
Yeah.
a significant part of your future. It's very, very rom-com. I love it.
I know. Yeah, it's quite cliche in a way, but that's how it went.
And I guess in terms of that formative experience, I mean, obviously it's a massive moment. We've talked about going straight from graduation into a workplace like that. And you had come from a visual communication background in uni, is that right? And then, so
Yeah.
is that how you fostered the kind of the multidisciplinary thing, or is it just that you've carried that all the way through?
Well, actually, so visual communication's what I studied, but actually all the electives, like all the subjects where you could pick your own modules, I always did very different things. So like I did a bit of, textiles because I was really I was fascinated by the making aspect. I also before I went into visual communications, I actually wanted to study fashion, but then, I was lured.
Practicality.
I wasn't lured into doing something more practical, but in a way, you know, from a practical standpoint, I was sort of advised, oh, maybe do this and then you can find your way. So I don't know, maybe it was meant to be that it happened this way. But I also did I was really interested in scenography and stage design. So I did really different things. And I think unlike a lot of my peers, also I think because I went to Barcelona, I was exposed to a lot of other things. When I came back, I realized, well, I don't want to have I realized I didn't want a conventional job. I didn't want to get into advertising. I didn't want to get into, a big agency. I didn't actually know what I would end up doing, but I really loved this idea of creating this artistic side, the emotive, I was really interested in the emotive aspect of creating and how the work, how it can tell something to somebody, to say something to someone, to almost expand their horizons. How do you add value to somebody else's life, whether it's personal or, or anything else, or informative. So that's, I became really fascinated with, almost the function
Mm.
of emotion. Like how do you design something that, and the functionality isn't so much, uh, yeah, um, yeah. I don't know. It affects your well-being. It affects
Mm.
your mind and your way of seeing the world. I think that's where the foundation of that came. And also my final project was more it was a tapestry, and it was actually, I was also exploring my identity back then. I graduated in 2010, but in 2009 I started working on my projects, and I sort of went back. It was at the time of the Green Revolution, not revolution, the uprising in Iran. The people started rising up again against their lack of equality for women. So all these things, they felt very connected to me. And I felt well, I need to do so. I can't just, go on with my life and just create pretty things for the sake of it. I thought how do I just create something that really comes from somewhere deeper, and whether it has an effect or not, there is a deeper message. So I was using textiles to almost like weave together the voices of these women in Iran who were standing up for freedom. And it's funny because that still exists in the work that we create. Like, you know, that message is still part of what we're doing now, and we do it together, me and Ruben, but it's not only, you know, that's not the only message that we like to share.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that. What is the ethos that underpins Rive Roshan as a studio? I read that idea of the idea that design can progress society and that it has the power to influence is something that you guys are connected to. But yeah, in your own words, what sort of drives you to create?
Yeah, I mean, so Ruben and I, we really operate as a duo. So it's really a collaboration between the two of us. So everything we're doing, it's not like my view only and his view only. It's really this space in between where our two sort of beings, or like, you know, creative bubbles come together and merge and create to like once in one space. So actually, we once both were triggered by this quote. It's actually a poem by Khalil Gibran. And there's a line in that poem that work is love made visible. And I think that's like ultimately that was our starting point. And, you know, while we were in London, we were both in different jobs. You know, we were both working for other great designers. Ruben was managing the branding for Tom Dixon, and I was working for a very artistic designer called Todd Boncher. So he's also very free in the way he works. We were in those spaces. We were working in these companies, both very different scales. And we were also exposed to the creative lifestyle in London. So Todd was the head of product design at the Royal College of Arts. So we were exposed to like all those students. We became friends with his students who would come and do internships with me. And so I would become friends. And then slowly we thought, oh, these kids, like they're all making these cool, you know, personal projects that are very passion driven. You know, we also want to do a bit of that as well. So in our spare time, we started creating our own work and exhibiting with these students. So we did our first Milan Design Week. And, you know, as we were doing it, we were like, why are we doing this? You know, why do we want to make, you know, we have our jobs. We have, you know, we've also got these, you know, our career, you know, we could have sort of, you know, grown in those paths. But we realized that, no, ultimately we want to, have, you know, create a world that we believe in, that we feel like has impact on others. And it doesn't come from the place of having a legacy as such, but also it just comes from a space of this idea of love, like sharing the love with other people, allowing others to become part of our world through what we create, and ultimately giving them, you know, something very small in their daily lives, whether it's through how, you know, we create a lot of installations and sort of immersive spaces. This year in Milan, we created an installation where we collaborated with like musicians, lighting designers. You know, it was really a coming together of people with different skills. And it was like a 2-minute 40 performance where you would go in, you would experience the cycle of a day through this lighting installation, but it would react to our work as well. So all the reflections. So yeah. And in the end, people would come out and they would feel very like moved. And I think ultimately, if you can move someone, at some point in their life, the way that we feel moved when we experience an incredible artwork or, like a Tyrrell or, mm, or just something as simple as like a sunset that you've never seen before. Maybe when you're in Africa, the way the sun sets is so different to the way you're used to seeing it. Those are the moments you remember in your life. And I think ultimately, like, we feel like if we can create those moments for someone or people, then we feel like it gives us a sense of hope and satisfaction. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. On the work in Milan,
Yeah.
you had 3 shows in 2025 or 3
Yes.
exhibits. And the Suncatcher at
Yeah.
Alcova, is that the one you're talking about where it uses, or is that another one?
That's a
Talk about that
different one.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, the one I was talking about was in it was a small space, a very intimate space in Cinque Via. But but Suncatcher was in Alcova. So it was an outdoor installation. It was more like it was an old fountain that hadn't had water in it since actually the owner came and said, "Oh, this fountain hasn't had water in it since the time of Mussolini." And we were a bit like, "Oh, that's it was a bit of a weird
That's one way to
reference."
mark the passing of time. Yeah.
Exactly. But we actually we found this space. Actually, we were offered this space and we were asked to create an installation in the space. And we thought, okay, well, we want to bring the water back because water is something, we use water a lot in our work because it has this magical ability to, like, I don't know, slow people down and get people's attention. And I think it's because it has very subtle movements. It responds to the surroundings through the reflection, but also through the movement of the breeze as well. So we thought, okay, definitely needs to have water in it. Because there's a lot of, because it was a heritage site, we had to do a lot of work to get that water in. We had to like cover the whole fountain because there was a mosaic under it and we couldn't damage it and things like that. So it was a big job. But that the Suncatcher actually quite literally was an installation that catches the energy of the sun. And in the day, it was a reflective installation. It's made out of glass, so it was like a half circle, and then you would get this sort of projection of a full sun in the water from its reflection. As you often with our work is all about like being quite transient, capturing your attention through the way that it changes, a bit like nature. It's not static. It's never the same. It always looks different depending on the light, depending on the angle you look at it from. So in the day, it was this sort of installation. You could walk around and you would sort of be a bit fascinated by the fact that the colors would change. And at night, all the energy lit up the installation and it became a sun that reflected itself in the water. And it was really poetic. And I mean, it was funny that people really, it was quite abstract in a way, but it resonated with people. And I think that's something, funnily enough, I met a lot of Australians there as well on the other side of the world, and we could catch up. But I think when people really respond to it, then you're like, oh, okay, this is something that we should
You've hit a note.
We should keep doing. Yeah, exactly.
And do you think the work is, I mean, it feels like there's this balance which is maintained in a couple of the things that you've talked about so far of there's something experiential, something responsive or observed that you are harnessing. And then there's the metaphor that kind of sits at the other end of the seesaw. Is that something that forms relatively naturally out of your work practice or your collective work practice? Or is it something you have to be mindful of managing as you're kind of developing concepts for these things?
No, it's very natural, very intuitive, actually. I mean, even the
Hmm.
process between me and Ruben and how we ultimately come to creating something together as a collaboration, that's also often, yeah, I mean, sometimes it just an idea starts with a conversation between us. And I mean, in reality nowadays, we're just like at the table with our kids, trying to talk about it and being distracted. But like, it could also just come from having a walk somewhere and being like, oh, wouldn't, this work. But actually, a lot of our work is also site specific. So
Mm.
we'll think about a specific place and time, and we respond to that place and time. We create for that space, and that was the case with Suncatcher. So it wasn't, we've been exploring solar energy in glass for a few years now. We work with, often our work is, yeah, the work is like, we're really interested in technology and how you can use technology in art, how it can advance the way that we're living. And although we do it in quite an abstract way, there could also be very functional applications as well. So we actually thought, this is an outside space. It can capture a lot of sun. So it makes a lot of sense to make a solar art installation in this context. And wouldn't it be beautiful if it surprised people in a way that it would light up as well? So, yeah, it's
Mm.
very intuitive in that sense.
I love that connection between nature and technology. It's like nature is the ultimate kind of original innovator, but then you're kind of harnessing these new methods and, yeah, new technology. I was reading about 3D printed sand. You've done some projects with 3D printed sand from Italy as
Yeah,
well.
from
So
Germany. Yeah, actually,
Germany.
the sand. Yeah, so the sand is a very special, like fine sand that you can find, yeah, on the sandbanks, like Bavarian sandbanks. We work with a company that's actually really specialized in creating. So actually, let me go back to what the process is. So the
Mm.
3D printed sand is used to make molds for sand casting. So it's like a high-tech way of making molds for metal parts. So I don't know if you know about like metal casting in
Mm.
sand. It's a very ancient
Mm.
way of making molds. So nowadays, what you can do is 3D print those molds with sand. And then companies like, I don't know, BMW or Airbus, they use this technology to make highly complex parts for their machinery.
Yeah.
But then, so what we're doing, we're sort of inverting the technology. So instead of using it as a mold, the piece is made as we use the material of the sand as the final object, but then it's
Mm.
infiltrated so that it doesn't break apart. So then it's very strong at the end. So the whole process is very it's a very meticulous process, especially that part between when it comes out of the sand bed. So it's printed in a way that it's in a bed, and then it needs to be excavated from this bed very carefully. The pieces that we make are very super detailed. Like, that's why it's really special, and that's why you can't do it in this way with ceramics, because they're very fine. And I mean, conceptually, the whole idea with this, like when we were exposed to this technology, we thought, and this is how we work most of the time, is we might come across a method or a material or a technology, but then before working with it, we try to think about what's the essence, what's the essence of the material. And in this case, it's sand. What's the essence of sand? And the beauty of sand is that it's fluid. You try to hold it in your hands, but you can't like grasp it fully. It will want to escape. And in that sense, it defies gravity. So when we started working with sand, we thought, how do we make objects that defy gravity? Wouldn't it be beautiful to create something that it feels like it's moving even though it's static? And slowly it became also personal as well. So actually some of the pieces we have with Sally's gallery in Melbourne, um, a series of we call them the voices vessels. And, they represent this idea of freedom and movement. And we tried to create this, almost like fabric, something that feels like a dress that's spinning and moving. And to me personally, they are a defiance against a suppression of women. Like that's, this feeling of like, okay, if you create something ultimately free, then you can actually represent this idea of like a vessel that just expresses the ultimate movement, something that, women in Iran especially, they're not allowed to dance, they're not allowed to sing, or they're very oppressed. And then that's how it also becomes personal. We sort of connect our personal motivations with the qualities, and then that's how we create the form as well, ultimate movement, ultimate freedom, expression. And so they're very expressive pieces. The ones we're going to have in Melbourne are actually painted as well, so we airbrush paint them. And so again, we're interested in this idea of light and shadow, how they play. When you light them from one perspective, the shadows become very dramatic on the other side because they have these very fine fins. So they look like they're dancing. And then with the coloring, they actually, as you walk around them, they have this effect that you almost feels animated. The colors are changing as you walk around. And then if you walk in the other direction, you experience another color way. So yeah, for us, that's the process.
Amazing. I can't wait to see it. We'll also, for everyone listening, we will have links to all of these projects. So, the visual, I think, will be so beautiful to see, hearing you talk and see the work as well.
Yeah, I think it will help contextualize, hopefully,
Yeah.
what I'm saying as well.
So I read in an interview back in 2019 that one of your greatest concerns with society is this like lack of empathy and the idea that humans are losing touch with caring for each other. And I thought that stood out to me. I mean, and you're talking about your own personal the way you infuse your work with your personal experiences. But a lot has changed since 2019 as well.
Yeah,
Like
COVID.
even more so, like,
Yeah.
and so I guess like I mean, there's that, but also your work is quite positive. Like I don't get the sense it's darkly political in a in a negative way. But yeah, what's your feeling now about the world, and is that still something? I mean, just going straight in for the big question.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Have a go at that.
Actually, yeah, we definitely believe that. I forgot about that interview, but now I know which one you're talking about as well.
I think it was like Interior Design magazine.
Oh yeah,
it was
exactly.
a Q&A.
Yeah, we had actually that was at the time of
Brexit?
we created actually, yeah, so usually around once. So what we try to do, like once a year, we really try to create a bit of a self-initiated installation, and we call those manifestations. So we sort of use them as a place where we can reflect on the state of the world and and just we call them manifestations because we don't want to call them exhibitions, because it's not so much about just looking at these objects. It's more about designing in response to our world around us, and how we see the future, or, it might be very in a light way. It doesn't always have to be very heavy. And I'll get back to the positivity aspect as well. So I think that interview was alongside an installation called Stilled Life that we did. It was in Dutch Design Week in 2019, and we were given this really amazing big space, and we walked into it and we thought, imagine if we could fill this space with water. Imagine if we could create something imagine if we could create this landscape that's so poetic that you walk into it and you just pause and you stop. Because, these fairs, these design exhibitions and art fairs, all these spaces, people are always running around. They're always in a hurry. They only have they don't even pay attention. You can't pay attention to everything because there's so much to see. And there's a lot of clutter. A work might be incredible, but you don't notice it because there's so much else around it. So what we wanted to do is actually make this space an installation that made people really pause and reflect. And we really felt like we're living in a time, even back then, we just felt like, we live in this time where we need to slow down and we need to just not be so much in a hurry, but just stop, pay attention, and actually reflect on what we're looking at. And ultimately that was our goal at that time, and we created Still Life. And I had this interview actually with the journalist at the time in this installation as well. And it was so weird because it was just before COVID. So that was in October 2019. And then in 2020, we were forced to just slow down and do anything and not run around. So there was this really funny feeling that, weird that we created this installation and then we were forced to live that way. So I'm not sure how I felt about that at the time, but that's also why we call them manifestations, sort of like our reflections on the world around us.
Yeah.
Since then, very, personally right now, I am deeply concerned about the state of the world. I think we should be. I don't know whether, it's also, you can choose how much you expose yourself to it but right now, just personally, I'm deeply affected by it because, my family is affected by everything that's happening in Iran. And that's only in the last month, thousands, tens of thousands of people being, killed because they were just standing up for their freedom. Lots of young people, bright students, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, children. Just the fact that can happen in this day and age. And I know it's in Iran and it feels very far away from our perspective, in Australia. But even it just, for me, it feels personal. For my family, it feels very, I have some family there, not a lot, but not being able to reach your relatives is a really, it's torture. It's really you're constantly worried about people that you love, and the fact that they cut out the internet, you can't connect with them. So I think, and also in Europe, being quite close to Russia and Ukraine. Now the whole conversation, I don't know, debates over Greenland. I think there's a lot of friction in our society right now. And we can choose to sort of either get really into it or completely ignore it. And I think for us, we actually call it it's sort of a bit like this space in between where you try to absorb and understand what's happening. You try to empathize. I think from my perspective, and I think also Ruben, speaking for Ruben as well, we really care about the human perspective, the human condition, caring. I think ultimately in the end, we need to love. Ultimately, that's it. If we can all be empathetic and love, then we hopefully can that's the solution in
Yeah.
my from my perspective. So then the work we do, it's not, even if it comes from a bit of a political space, and I don't think you can really create something if there isn't a personal, if it doesn't come from a real place. I wouldn't know what I'm doing. I wouldn't have a place to come from. So it's very natural to respond to personal matters, but then people have different ways of doing it. So from our side, we like to do it from this idea of shifting perspectives. Actually, that was another installation that we did in a museum in the Netherlands, and we actually called it shifting perspectives, and this was after COVID, because we realized, well, we all have our views, we all have our different stories and narratives, but actually if you ultimately can let somebody else empathize, or shift someone else's perspectives, just so they can see from a fresh angle, see something new or different, then maybe they might be able to empathize with other people or with you. And I think that's the beauty of, I mean, that's what humans actually, we respond to nature. We respond to the beauty of nature. It's in our
Mm.
nature to look at, when you see something beautiful, you are meant to stop. And we live in a society where we don't do that. But we're sort of programmed to respond to beauty. And ultimately, we believe that, if you work towards creating something that, like I said before, like touches somebody, hopefully that leads them to be able to make better or more positive decisions in the future.
I want to give you like a
Yeah,
ovation.
that's right.
Yeah, no,
What a
it
Really
sounds
fantastic
beautiful.
thesis.
it sounds a lot bigger. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's not like when it's tiny ripples it's nothing, we're just doing small things. And I feel like we all have this role now.
Mm.
Where there's so much hatred. Why should we focus on the hatred? We need to focus on the love. So that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you say, the intentionality of those, creating the moments, creating the experiences. As you're talking, I was thinking about, Italian design after the Second World War, and how the response of um, the creatives to the fascist regime that had fallen, and the horror and the pain of war, was to create
Yeah.
joyful, elemental, evocative experiences in the everyday, and to try and surround the everyday way, that through architecture, through objects, through all sorts of things. And yeah, the power, I guess, to be able to be intentional with a response of joy or love or empathy or whatever it is in the face of the opposite, feels like a real. I was gonna. I wouldn't want to use a violent term back. It's not a weapon. It's a salve. It's a healing
Yeah,
action.
exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also, that's the power that we have as creatives. We
Exactly.
can dream, and we can create the world that we want to live in. And no matter how we're doing it, we're sort of working towards this, yeah, dream.
Mm. Well, if we bring the entire world back to the sphere, a smaller sphere, let's
Yeah.
say maybe the kitchen table, or the living room carpet, was with a young person playing with blocks or whatever it might be, dreaming of their own creative future. Having a partner in work, creative work, and in life, what does that take? What is that? Because you've got another practice as well, right? Called design and practice. Is that's still an
Yeah.
ongoing individual
Yeah.
practice as well?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what does that look like? How do you determine the ways in which you are yourselves, the ways in which you interact as parents, say, versus as colleagues or business owners or artists, or the very many hats you wear?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think Ruben and I have this shared dream to have the creative life. So ultimately, everything we do is for this goal of creativity being part of our lives. And, you know, whether it's about our home and how we recently created our own home. It's an apartment in Amsterdam, but like we
Mhm.
made it so that, it's for the functionality of our lives and our children. You create the way that you work so that you can lead happy, and in the end everyone has stress, and you have
Mm.
your problems as well. I mean, last year was a really tough year for us as a studio, from the business perspective. I think it was a bit of a challenging year for us, but that's how it is. That's how it is to I think, especially when you share that, you can empathize with each other, and it's almost like you're creating your lives together, and you're sort of both working towards the same goals. I think that's the strength of our relationship together, because we're just both entwined in it all, everything that we do, also the way we manage our family, the way we engage with our kids and organize our lives is very much towards like just this shared common goal that we both have. I'm sorry, I think I might have gone off track with the question.
No, no, no. I think that's
Um,
exactly it.
but then, I think being a creative and ultimately wanting to create what you believe in yourself in itself, I think is you need to have an entrepreneurial spirit to bring that to life.
Yeah.
It's impossible to do it without having this, vision. There is a practical aspect to it as well. And I think for us, I think what works is the power of collaboration. So, of course, we have this collaboration between the two of us, but actually, we collaborate with, whether it's our gallery, with Sally, we have a very strong, we just, the fact that we're able to create relationships with partners, I think that's what, I think that's what works for us. That's what's
Mhm.
the best way of working. We also collaborate with, partners that we create our pieces with. We create a lot in the studio, but there's certain things that we can't do ourselves either. So
Of
if you
course.
need really big machinery, so it's about like building these relationships, and also, our team, like we work with people in our studio as well that help us, even to the point that like our kids became part of the business. So like when during COVID, Ava, who's our eldest, she's almost 8 now, she was just painting in the studio, and I put it on Instagram, and Moy Carpet, so one of the partners that we work with, um, actually the lady who was working there, she said, "Oh, we should turn her painting into a carpet." And then, it became an artwork, a part of this story of the studio. And it actually, like, it's been sold a few times as well. So she has
Yeah,
her,
yeah.
influence over the studio too. So, yeah, I think there is we work in a very fluid way. We need to
Mm.
we definitely need to get better at the business side of things. That's also a constant learning. It's not something, at least to me, it doesn't come that naturally. But it's just, it's a way of, I think, being adaptable, understanding that everything you do, you just need to keep learning. You keep needing to
Yeah.
expose yourself to different things, even like things you don't know anything about, but you can learn it and you can get help from other people. And that's how we operate in
Yeah.
that way.
Fantastic. What an example of the creative mindset at work, particularly that
Yeah.
voracious, can't do it, learn it, find out, but with a,
Yeah,
not without the appropriate respect for those who are expert, but also understanding that you
exactly.
need to start from somewhere to be
Yeah,
able to interface with
exactly.
it.
And collaborate, work with the
Yeah.
experts. And I think that's once you start doing that, then you realize that anything is actually possible. You know, you can actually, if you have an idea, you can actually make it happen by just finding the right people to do it with. And yeah, I mean, we could never make a sound and light installation without the partners that we collaborated with, you know? Like if we were to sit there and learn everything ourselves, it would take forever. I mean, I must say Ruben is really someone who he can learn anything very quickly. So he'll want to do everything himself. He's very smart in that way. I'm not that technical, but in that sense, it's also nice that, you know, to have somebody who's interested in learning next to you as well. So
Curiosity, I think it goes a long way, right? Like
That's
it
the
sounds
bingo
like,
card.
yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So creativity then, I'm interested in your thoughts of it more conceptually. Is every person creative, or does everyone have the capacity for creativity, do you believe?
I think so. I mean, I think children, you know, when you observe a way a child grows, you realize they just, yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, I also think like somehow in our society, that creativity does get taken away from us if you don't train it, if you're not, you know, practicing it, or if you're not enabled to
Yeah.
practice it. You Yeah, it's just something that it's a bit like if you, I don't know, if you haven't played an instrument for a very long time, it's really hard to get back into it again. So, you know, some of us, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that. I even think like if you aren't in a creative role, but you have a creative mind or an outlook on life, you can apply that to whatever you're doing. You don't need to be making art or design. You know, you can be
Yeah.
a lawyer, and if you're really creative, then you're really you can make great decisions.
Mm.
Yes, I think it's actually ultimately that's ingrained in us, and it's part of human civilization. If you look back at like ancient times,
Yeah.
it's so impressive how creative people have been throughout civilization.
Makes you
Well
wonder, and
said.
this is rhetorical, but like, at what point did it get decided that creativity should be like squashed out of us? You know, I feel like the traditional education system, we're all for practicality, and yeah, it's just sort of, it feels like we need to be exercising that creative muscle and encouraging it more in our young people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So we arrive at the post-industrial economic system that has put us all in boxes and sold our time for money.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
another episode.
That's a whole different podcast, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
it's a
keep getting them
really
mixed up.
interesting one, especially when you have kids and you have to think about their education, and then you know, and you actually
100%.
question what's going on and how they're learning. You know, it's sort of,
And the room for the divergent mind, you know, within an organized educational system, which is
yeah,
organized to a particular end, and that's not always divergent
exactly.
thought.
Yeah, and I mean, to a degree, I also understand. You know,
Of course.
certain rules have to be made and structures, but it's true. I think like So yeah, I think it's very fortunate if like in your personal surroundings you're exposed to being creative. If your parents
Yeah.
give you that, you know, if you're exposed to, because actually I mean you do get it in the school system to a certain degree, and it depends what system of education you're in.
Yes.
So, for example, we chose to put our daughters in Montessori education in the Netherlands. Like in the Netherlands, you have lots of options. You can do like this
Mhm.
style of education or that style of. So there's all these different philosophies. And I mean, what we liked about that is it was all about independent. It's all about independent learning. But you know, there are elements that are very confined about that. You know, when you also
Yeah.
create an ideology around something, it can also be confined in its own way. So I think it's just up to us as individuals and parents and aunts and grandparents, whatever your role is, you know, towards children, to just inspire them and let them play and let them be exposed to, yeah.
Absolutely. It's a type of visibility. You know, I can do
Yeah,
this. This is valid. And these
exactly.
people who I admire do this. You know, it's
Yeah.
not something that, yeah, it's interesting. Some of our happiest family times are down the road at the local restaurant, and one or both of the children will bring a stack of A4 paper and a heap of pencils. But then the looks we get from the wait staff when they come around, and mum and dad are probably more engrossed in the drawing session than the
Oh,
kids.
yeah.
At some point, they've lost interest. But you know, you have a table full. It's not just, oh, you know, that's what they do because we don't want to give them screen time. It's like everyone's in. Draw one of these. Draw one of those. What could this look like? You know, let's do that
Yeah,
better. And then you end up with a
exactly.
table full of paper, and the kids, you can see they're just eating it up. Like it's just, it brings a validation to something that could be, they might think is childish, or you know, the adults do one thing and the kids do something else. And it's so interesting when you are trying to navigate it, not on behalf of someone, but trying to lay the groundwork for young people, that you see all the ways that it starts to get closed off,
Yeah,
you know, as they get older.
yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah,
Cool.
love those.
Well, is it time for the final question? I think so. David, you can ask this one, I feel like.
Can I?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I think you've foreshadowed a few things so far, Golnar, of the life of the work beyond you, or what you're trying to put out into the world and your creative partnership. But we ask every guest, if you could design your own death, what would that look like? And, you know, there's different ways that you might want to go about it. We've given you a few kind of handles to begin with in terms of, is it about leaving something behind? Is it about a life beyond the work that you're making and touching other people? Is it literal? Like, you know, what people would you want around to acknowledge or celebrate your life, or, you know, to mark that moment, or whatever way you want to take it? It's up to you.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I was thinking about this a lot,
Mm.
actually. It's weird because I find it bad that it's a bit of a taboo, because I feel,
Mm.
you know, it's a heavy question in the end.
Mm.
And I realized at some point, oh, I find it really hard to just give a straight up answer. You know, with a lot of things, you can just say what you think straight away. Whereas with this, I feel like it's such a very loaded question. I wish I could just be like, oh yeah, this is how I want it to be. This is how I want my death to be. But yeah, I don't want it to come out of a place of vanity, or, you know, I
Yeah,
don't take that lightly. There is, just because it's so connected to, yeah, so many different, I don't know, like, so death can come in so many different ways.
yes.
But I think, you know, a bit like how life comes about with birth, you know, I kind of see death as a similar stage in life.
Mm.
I actually see it quite spiritually, not in a religious way, but in a way that, you know, just as a new being comes to life, it's sort of that being also, yeah, that's quite somehow there's a spiritual process there, you know, where this person is sort of just coming out of, uh, you know,
Yeah,
the belly. And then I think the way you go is also a bit like connected to the way you come into the world.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually, I find this really hard to answer. I think personally, I think that in the end, I think ultimately it's about the life that you've lived. I think it's about how you've, the memory that you leave with people around you and how they remember you. Like even with, grandparents and great
Mm.
relatives when they pass away. I think, the thing that you leave, the most important thing that they've left behind is their being. It's the person that they were, and that's what we end up cherishing inside. It's so immaterial. Um, and it's just this memory that you have of this being,
Mm.
not even physical being and what they looked like. It's often the way they made you feel,
The
the
experience of them.
yeah, the experience, and especially the ones, you cherish with you that become part of you. So I actually, I don't know what happens after death. I'm not someone who has a belief in this is what happens to you after death, no matter like, how you're raised or whatever. Everyone has their own ideas. But what I feel with it is that, you carry those people who leave the physical realm, our lives. You carry
Mm.
them inside of you, especially the people that you love, and they become a part of you. And I think ultimately, I hope that I can leave something in the people that I love or who love me. Actually, in the end, it's not about me, it's about them. Leave
Mm.
something for them that will just give them light and hope and positivity. And I want to leave
Mm.
that. That's it. I think that's it. It's like as simple as that. Just, yeah, if
Yeah.
I'm good honest,
Elemental.
that's my answer.
Well, thank you.
Simple
Thank you for
is
your
beautiful.
vulnerability in responding as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Well, how wonderful that this thread that has gone through the whole conversation. It's you dream of the world that you want to see. You make work that creates experience for people that is coming from place of synthesis of the state of the world, and yet deliberately brings positivity. And then creating this other centric casting forward of the person you were, the person you made, the space you made, the statements you made. It's fantastic. It's so inspiring. Thank you, Golnar.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, thank
It's
you
been
so
such
much
a
for the
beautiful
conversation.
conversation. Really, thank you for sharing your journey and just being so open and honest. And
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, thanks so much. I really I'm actually looking forward to meeting you guys in person in
yeah,
Melbourne. I think that's also really nice. But yeah, I hope, yeah, I mean, in the end, I think we all just, we all have our own dreams. And I think it's important that we, yeah, work towards that. That's all we can do, just, yeah, have a good time while we're doing it as well. And that's it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you've been listening to Creative or Dead. This episode was recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri and Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and we would like to pay respects to elders past and present, extending that acknowledgement to all First Nations and Indigenous peoples around the world.
If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, you can find many more like it on whatever platform you get your podcasts. And if you've really enjoyed it, please feel free to leave us a review or to share it with someone that you think might find it interesting.